Hi there, Craig Wilkinson here. Welcome to another episode of Dangerous But Good. I am delighted to have, for me, a very important guest today, Sihle Mooi. Sihle is the head of a wonderful organization called Hotel Hope. And Hotel Hope takes in orphan kids, abandoned kids, and feeds them, clothes them, educates them, fathers them, mothers them, and then helps them to find homes. It's a beautiful, beautiful organization. And Sihle, I've been looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, brother.
Thank you very much. It's a joy to be here finally.
Finally, yes. It's taken a while to get it together.
Excited.
But I'm just, let's first get into the man, Sihle. I've known you for many, many years, and you worked in Alexandra Township for many years with an organization called Rays of Hope.
Yep.
And now you're with Hotel Hope as a surrogate father, as the leader of an organization that looks after kids who have been abandoned. What drives the man, Sihle, to use your talents, skills, and abilities for NGO purposes, for ministry purposes, for instead of getting into a corporate and just pursuing a career, the desire to actually have an impact? Where does that come from?
Yes, thanks, Craig, for that question. I was born and bred in Soweto, so I grew up and in one of the townships. I was raised by a single mom,
right,
and who basically, from being a domestic worker when I was born, went on to become a teacher, and then went on to become a school principal.
Wonderful.
And has really had a huge influence. Incidentally, she passed recently. And so I was born during the time when South Africa was changing. And so I remember one day when she arrived at home, and she had a piece of paper and she put it in front of me and said, "Sihle, you are going to be going to a white school."
Right.
And that was, I didn't really know what that was because I had gone to a primary school in Soweto.
Yes.
And so she said to me, "South Africa is changing. Now there are opportunities for you to go to the kind of school that we were not allowed to go to."
Wow.
And so I would like you to do it. And I'm not asking, I'm telling you.
No choice. No
exactly.
choice. Yeah.
And you will thank me later,
Lovely.
And daunted by all of that, I was one of the first in that street because she had worked so hard for so many years and actually could afford for me to go to that school. And I think what I saw there going to that school for the first time has really shaped me.
Right.
Coming from where I came from, I went and I saw a school that looked like a resort or a hotel, something I'd never seen in my whole life.
Wow.
And so here I was traveling from Soweto and, getting into the bus, going into, suburbia, and just seeing these very two different worlds, where, there was deprived, very little that was around, and seeing, where there was just excess and,
Right.
11 fields, in that school,
Amazing.
100 and something, from a school that, had around 13 classrooms for over 1,000
Wow.
children. And so that always struck me as just the things that I needed in this environment to so that those children can actually thrive in the world that they're in. But also went on and was involved in starting a work in Soweto. And here I was thinking, I am one of those who actually have the list, but realizing that so many young people, do not have a father or a mother, to look after them. They are being raised by grandmothers. They don't have anybody who's checking whether they are going to school or not. And so for me, these experiences made me realize that this world, actually, there is very little. There is just so much injustice.
Right.
And therefore, we who have something, whether we are men, whether we've had opportunities to go to school, whether we have been reared in families and in homes, have a responsibility to close that gap.
Fantastic.
We have a responsibility to provide the things that we have received to others who have not. And so after studying law, at Vets, thanks to the education that I received, I was challenged really to think about not just the law of man, but also the law of God.
Right.
As that being foundational, much more foundational, and the real source of prosperity, the real source of freedom,
Right.
the real source of transformation.
Wonderful.
So that's kind of how I got into
That's
it.
a beautiful story, man. That's a truly beautiful story, inspirational. I mean, that's a rallying cry to everybody. Eh? Man, whatever you've got, use it for good. Whatever privilege you have, whatever education, whatever strength, use it to make a difference because the world needs that.
What does Spider-Man says? For whom much is given, much is expected. That's what the Bible says. But the way that Spider-Man puts it is that, with great power, there's great responsibility. And often we don't realize, how much power is in our journey in the things that we have in our hands.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and they are there not for for ourselves, but actually they're there for a purpose, for the sake of others.
It's fantastic. If every man and every woman had that attitude, this world would be free from injustice. It would be free from orphans. It would be free from the social issues that we face. Yeah. We were talking here before the podcast just about how South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. You have Alexandra, poverty-stricken, and you have a stone's throw away Sandton, the richest square kilometer in Africa. And damn, we need to get our act together, to rally together those of us who have to be a danger to things like poverty and orphanhood. And I salute you, Sihle. You're a dangerous man. You're a good man. You're a nice man, but you're dangerous. You're dangerous to the things that threaten society. And I mean, that's what this is all about. So kudos to you for seeing that and coming to the party.
Thank you.
One of the biggest challenges we have in South Africa, and that's why I'm so excited about our conversation, is fatherlessness. It's absent fathers. The statistics show that 60% of children in South Africa are growing up without a present engaged father. And you've chosen to be a surrogate father to many. Yeah. You have your own, but obviously you've chosen to be a surrogate father to others. And that's a beautiful thing. Tell us about that journey. How, this is a very female dominated world that you're in. Yeah. The space of orphans and vulnerable children and preschool. And yet I've seen you in action with those babies. They come alive, man. They want those daddy's arms to hold them. Tell us how that journey has been.
Yeah. So I think, having grown up myself, being raised by a single mom, and, I look at my upbringing and I'm grateful, for all that I've received. However, there are so many men who are part of my journey,
right?
Who just saw potential. They saw, sometimes gaps in my knowledge, and they chose to walk alongside me. A number of them were in the church, just acknowledging me. Fantastic. Acknowledgement for a boy coming from a man, saying, actually, we see what you are doing, and you are doing well. We love it. And often it's not even big things. It's simply saying we see, and we
just that acknowledgement.
We receive you.
That acknowledgement.
Exactly. And so just to have that as part of my journey, there are so many of them, and sadly some of them are now passing, because of age. However, when I look back at my journey, a lot of the turning points, were because of people who chose. The reason why I chose to go and do law, it was because of someone, who said to me, look at the example of Mandela, and he was a man, and he said, you've got to, somebody who went on to be a lawyer, a respectable profession. However, it wasn't for himself, but it was for the rights of others. And so when he And when I went on to go to Bible college, which was a big turning point in my life, again, it was somebody who chose to meet with me regularly for over a period of a year. Right. And it was a man, and they said to me, you have certain gifts, you have certain these things. And I think for me, those voices spoke far more right. into my life than, my mom even, yes. And others. And so I think I've come to realize, the power, in men, at least men speaking to men and men speaking to women.
Right.
And so, and I just remember having many periods where that was the case in my journey. But I think what also I have found is that, you know, when you go into these spaces, whether it's orphanages, whether it's schools, there is something about you being a guy that, you know, guys and children are attracted to.
Yes.
You know, they kind of go after you. And I used to wonder why that was the case.
Right.
You know, I used to wonder why, you know, they're saying, but Sihle, watch this, you know,
Yes.
and, you know, and not to someone else, but Sihle, can you listen to this? You know,
Right.
I want to show you this. Let me show you my drawing.
Right.
And so realizing that, you know, even though I felt inadequate perhaps in those spaces, that actually my voice was needed, my presence was needed. And sometimes I didn't know what to do, but actually just being there and noticing. And so I have, just enjoyed it, being in those spaces. And now I do create time, you know, instead of just being there or sitting in the office somewhere where I, you know, can, you know, bark orders, but I ensure that in my day, you know, I make time to be around the children, and, you know, and the aunties that are in those spaces where, you know, in those women-dominated spaces, as you say.
Yes.
You know, they often watch when I walk in, you know. And
the kids come alive, eh? Yeah.
Kids come alive. They come and
Beautiful.
they, you know, they want to climb, you know, they want to go high. They want to hear your voice. They want to play with your beard.
Beautiful.
You know, it is just, you know, you realize how much you are needed.
Yeah.
And they watch and they see that something else is,
Right.
you know, a different energy is coming in here, you know, that the children need.
It's beautiful.
So it's a real joy. And each day it reminds me of the privileges that I have and the power that I have because of that.
It's tremendous, Sihle. I mean, you raise a very profound point here. Both boys and girls need both men and women. And the feminine energy and the masculine energy are different.
They are.
Equally important, but different.
Yeah.
And there's a hunger. There's a hunger for the masculine energy. I've had exactly the same experience with young kids without a father. And there's an absolute draw to the masculine. I was sitting in a restaurant not long ago, and there was a woman with her son, young son. He must have been 7 or 8 years old. And I just started interacting with his son. And it was almost, not quite, but almost embarrassing the way he wouldn't let me go.
Exactly.
He ended up on my lap. He was just, you know, and there's a cry in the hearts of young boys and young girls for masculine energy, but good masculine energy. Masculine energy that's powerful, but it's nurturing and loving and gentle and caring. And we need that as a nation, man. We need men to step up.
We do. I think that is my experience, you know, all the time, that there is almost a, you know, when the children are there in a restaurant or whatever, that actually they are not you know, people are surprised that, you know, a man notices them. One, you know, normally, you know, it's the women, but if a man notices them and then there's some kind of interaction that happens, it's just, you know, powerful. And I've had exactly the same experiences where, you know, suddenly saying goodbye is so difficult now.
Yeah, the tears come, and they don't want to let you go because they love what you bring.
Yes. And so I do think as men, we do have a place, you know, in the lives of children, in the lives of particularly children that have grown up without that energy in their lives. Yes. And so I think every opportunity that we take to affirm, you know, and not harm, because those are the stories that so many hear of children being taken advantage of by men, but actually, just being positive and acknowledging and being affectionate.
Absolutely. Let's speak to the men of our nation. You know, many of the men in our nation were not fathered. Many men grew up and their role models were gangsters and drug users and uncles who beat their wives. And we need to fix that. There's a desperate, urgent need to fix that. I've often, I believe without a doubt, with all my heart, if we can heal men, we can heal the world, we can heal society. But what would you say to a South African man about his importance, about his value, about the need for him to step up as a strong, powerful, but good, gentle, loving, caring man? What would you say from your experience, from doing that and seeing the hunger for it and also the response to that when you provide that?
I think it's so important for South African men and all of us as men to realize that we are made in the image of God.
Right.
That we are made of good stuff.
Absolutely.
That we... that regardless of mistakes that we may have made, regardless of, the things that we have done wrong, that actually there is much that we were created for good.
Yes.
And so often the message is that there is no good,
right?
That come from us.
Trash.
Exactly. We are trash. It's toxic. And I think often that it resonates with us as well, because we've, because of that, of the strength that we have and the things, when we do go wrong, a lot of damage happens. Sure. And we've seen that happen. Yeah. And so I think if where we are reminded that we do have value, that we are good. And I think that for men, creating space and time to be around other men.
Yes.
It kind of reminds us, because I think when we see, other men making good decisions and being it inspires us. Suddenly, actually, we don't have to make that choice. Others are making that choice.
Right.
And often if we know them and we are close to them, we see that they are not perfect.
Yes.
But we see that actually there are good choices they're making. They're making choices to be with their families. They're making choices to be a positive, not exploitative, to the opposite sex. Yeah. And for us, I think we are inspired by other men, and we see, I think so I would say, being reminded we have value. And I think spaces like churches, are powerful spaces where you are reminded that you are made in the image of God, but also creating room in our lives to be with other men and to be vulnerable, around other men.
Yes.
And it's hard, because we can be competitive and we can feel that we will be judged. However, I think that that's what we need in order for us, to be healed,
right,
and to be reminded of our value. So I think those two things will propel us. And I think when men are together, and we have positive energy, we begin to plan of things that we can do, to be a positive influence on others and to bring change to others.
Fantastic.
I have a group of men from Alex, of whom when I hear what's happening in their lives, I just think I'm doing nothing, the kinds of challenges they are facing, and yet the decisions that they are making for me, make me feel like, I am really behind here. I need to catch up.
They inspire you.
They inspire me.
You.
Yeah. And then often we think, okay, this is what we can do together. And when men are united and we feel like we can make a difference in the lives of others, I think the things that happen are magical.
They are magic.
Yeah.
They are magic.
And so I think we need that.
100%. Sihle, I couldn't have put it better myself. I mean, the true masculinity is a beautiful gift to the world. Beautiful gift. And we often lose that in the struggles that men have and some of the bad decisions men as a collective have made. But this band of brothers is a powerful, powerful force for good.
Yeah.
Brothers who, as you mentioned, they need to be vulnerable to each other. We need to be able to share. So often men get together, all they talk about is sport, soccer, and women, but we need to talk about the real issues of our heart. We face challenges. They say men are human too, and we are. We break, we fear, we cry, and we need to sharpen each other.
Yeah.
The biblical injunction that iron sharpens iron. As men get together and we see each other doing things that are not ideal, we call each other out. We sharpen each other.
Yeah.
and as a band of brothers, the masculine energy is a powerful force.
It is.
And it must be a powerful force for good.
Yeah.
And I just, what you were saying earlier and what I've experienced in my life is the hunger that youngsters, boys and girls, have for the masculine energy. I'll tell you a vulnerable story. I had an interesting experience many years ago, kind of in my early 40s. I was listening to a piece of music. It was a guy who was singing in the deepest baritone I've ever heard. Deep voice. It was actually called on stage by Elvis Presley. I forget the guy's name. But he sang in this voice that was so deep and so resonant. It sounded like a trombone. And the strangest thing began to happen to me. As I heard this voice, deep, resonant, it represented for me masculinity. Masculinity is core. I said to you earlier, you got a deep masculine voice and it's beautiful. I began to tear up.
Wow.
It touched something deep in my heart, and I realized even in my early 40s, I also had quite a journey, where a brother committed suicide, etc. The desire for the masculine in a powerfully positive way, totally non-sexual way, totally not, but just a way that this is masculine and this is powerful and this is good. It was singing, it evoked an emotion in me which surprised me. And so we need the masculine. We need the powerful, strong masculine. We need the band of brothers. We need men such as yourselves who step up with their arms to hold and nurture, but also with their voice to discipline, and be powerful but good. And I'm inspired. I mean, I visited Hope, Hotel Hope, and saw you holding some of those babies. They didn't want to let go. They didn't want to let go. I mean, and even the moms that were there were saying, Sihle, this child needs you, and so
often they are in awe of how the children respond, which is just amazing.
Well, it shows the lack, Sihle. It shows the lack of masculine nurturing energy in the world, in our nation. And I mean, I just want to add to what you said. This is a call, a rallying call to men in South Africa. You are so important. You are so needed. Step up. Be masculine. Use that deep voice. Use that strength, but use it to nurture and to love and to protect, even if you're unable to provide, and I think this is a big tragedy in our nation.
Right.
We talked about fatherlessness, but let's talk about unemployment. It's huge. So when a man is unable to provide, he feels useless, but he's not useless. He still has those strong arms, that deep voice. He has the presence, which can have a massive impact on his family and those around him. To be that man, to bring the masculine.
I think so. And, people say that, being unemployed and not having the power to do certain things emasculates you, and it doesn't.
No, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. And I think what we do need, I think there is, good company, is actually one of the most important things that we need, to find men, that will see your value and see the positives,
and bring out the best in you,
and bring out the best in you, and call you to say this is what you are capable of, and this is what you can be. And so I think I would love for each of us who are men to be thinking: do we have people like that in our lives? Can we think of people who have been that in our lives? Give them a call, and just be around them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because, often that is, there's something powerful about presence that communicates to you, who you are and your value.
You're pitching up.
Exactly. And so, call, have a conversation, spend some time with that person, and you come out each time, as somebody else, and believing that you have what it takes to do, what's ahead of you.
I love it. I mean, that question, that thing you just mentioned there, have what it takes. That's the cry on every man's heart. That's the question. Do I have what it takes?
Yeah.
And it's the question that fathers need to answer for boys.
Yes.
And in the absence of fathers, uncles, grandfathers, older brothers need to answer that question for the younger men in their lives. Son, you have what it takes. You are the man. Doesn't matter if you're not earning. Doesn't matter if you haven't got a big car. What matters is you're a man and you've got what it takes to make a significant difference.
Yes. And I think, when a man communicates that in your presence, that is fully communicated. Because there's something about being there and hearing that
from a man.
And you can read all the books, you can hear it. And I think that is why in the beginning of, the most manly man, Jesus Christ, God came down and said, this is my son with whom I am well pleased.
Yeah.
And so that was an affirmation.
From the Father to the Son.
To the Son, and it required a presence,
And a voice.
And a voice.
Yeah, a voice.
Yes. And I think those two things are what it actually will translate and resonate and stay.
Yeah.
And it stayed with him, I think, right until the end.
Right.
And I think that it can do the same for us as well.
We need that. We need the voice of the Father. And maybe it's an uncle, maybe it's an older one. We need the voice of the older man and the presence of the older man and the attention of the older man and the engagement and the seeing. I see you, Sihle, I see you, and you're good. Yeah. And I mean, that's a gift that every father needs to give.
Yeah, I got a lot of that, to be honest, really in the church.
Yeah.
Quite simply because it's people that you see often.
Yes.
Once a week. And, if they look at you with approval and they're happy to see you,
it's a powerful
thing because, you've got your own insecurities. You're coming in, you may have, messed up or you lost at a race at school, but if there's, that joy to see you.
Fantastic.
And
a lot of it is just pitching up. It's being present.
Yeah.
You don't have to say the fancy words or do the fancy outings. Just being present.
Correct.
Just that hand on your shoulder. Just Sihle, brother, you've got it.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
So one of the things that I will do today in the afternoon is that I will go and hang out with the boys. And we're not going to do much. We're going to talk about what's happening in the soccer. We're going to talk about what's happening there and the opportunities there to talk and the opportunities there for, for topics to arise are really, really rich. And it just fills their tank,
wonderful.
For the rest of the coming week. And so, I'm looking forward to that.
And I'm sure they are longing for that.
Yeah.
Sihle, how do we talk to men who didn't get that growing up? And I think a lot of men didn't. I didn't. You grow up and you arrive at adulthood and there's a wound, there's a lack, there's a, I love what you say. In essence, you brought to life the African proverb that says it takes the village to raise a child.
Correct.
So your mom was an outstanding mother. I mean, we've heard her. I mean, just amazing. And yet she needed men in the community to play their role.
Yeah.
And so how do we talk to men who never got that, who are unfathered? And there is a wound. I think it starts with self-awareness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It starts with looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, I feel less than, I feel inadequate. I feel like I'm an imposter.
Yes.
And I need to go through a process of healing and restoration to be the man that God made me to be so that I can be that to others.
Yeah. I think it's a very... really, really important question because I think that we, as men, the truth is life, as we go through it, begins to show us that there is a lack, there is something wrong. That, why am I behaving in this way without really knowing, why am I behaving in this? Why do I keep, doing the things that I'm doing? Why am I reacting this way? Why am I overreacting, to certain things? And I think that's something that each of us as men realize as we grow up.
If we're self-aware, if we're honest with ourselves,
yes.
that some of our behaviors are less than perfect.
Yes.
That we may be drinking too much. That we may be watching porn. We may be just not pitching, and it's those behaviors that are not what they should be.
Yes, and I think the opportunities to dwell with that instead of drowning yourself with alcohol, to say, okay, it feels as though I am not overcoming certain things, and why is that? Do I need to talk to somebody?
Right.
who, do I see in my life perhaps that has, been on a journey that is showing, just something different.
Some good fruits.
Some good fruits. It's showing, a focus and a purpose, some decision making, which is, not common. Can I then, have a conversation with that person?
Right.
And just, say, this is kind of, where I am. For some of us, we don't have opportunities to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Because I recommend that for everyone, really.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Something.
All of us need some therapy.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so, and for us to be able to express, what's happening and what we are finding. And I think I'm, currently going through therapy. I've just been through so much in this last year, lobolad, got married, miscarried, lost my mom, and you begin to see that you've become numb and you are just surviving, and, you begin to rely on certain habits just to medicate.
Right. Self-medication.
Self-medication. You are now wanting, you really no longer interested in life. And
you're just surviving.
You're just kind of surviving. And, and there are examples, you look at people and you hear people and you think, no, there's something wrong here because of what I'm seeing,
right.
With how others are doing and where other men are. And then you begin to say, okay, right, instead of saying that I'm going to figure this out on my own, somehow, let me reach out to somebody.
Fantastic.
Let me talk to somebody. And I believe that if we do that, we are beginning on a process of owning how we feel, of owning our story, and beginning to say, okay, how do we start, thinking of things differently, owning a different narrative,
right.
Listening to a different voice from within us. And all of that.
It's fantastic. I mean, I think the two key steps you're talking about there, number one is self-awareness. Looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, some of the ways that I'm pitching up as a man, I'm not happy with. You know, the impact that I'm having on people, I'm not happy with. My absence in the lives of those who need me,
correct.
I'm not happy with. Maybe some of the substances I'm taking, maybe some of the material I'm consuming. Just my lifestyle is not what I want it to be. And then talking.
Yes.
Finding a trusted brother, counselor, man, older man, even peers, brother to brother, we can be a tremendously powerful force in each other's lives. I really honor what you've done now. You spoke very openly and honestly. I've been through a very tough year. It started to really impact. I mean, that's a starting point, Sihle, isn't it? When we just talk about those things, share them with brothers, whether it's a therapist or not, it doesn't matter. Just the fact that you have a brother, an uncle. I think we often underestimate grandparents and older men. I mean, they've got so much wisdom to bring. The brotherhood, I'm privileged to do a lot of work with men throughout Africa, through the banks, high-powered executives, and I say to these guys, the wisdom in a group of men, some from Nigeria, some from Mozambique, some from Kenya, but we bring something to each other which is just invaluable. Each of them have a journey, and the journey of a man and a woman to where they are is a sacred thing.
Yes.
We see the outside, don't we? I see Sihle, smiling face, but I don't see what's in there. The journey that got Sihle to where he is, the things that Sihle is dealing with right now as we speak. And if we allow ourselves to unlock those and give each other the gift of listening to that and give each other the gift of sharing that, absolute magic happens. Beautiful things.
I believe
because
that.
Sihle, you've got wisdom that I can benefit enormously from. I've got wisdom that you can. You've had experiences that I've never had that I can benefit from. And likewise, and I mean the gift we can give each other as brothers in terms of almost refathering each other as peers and moving towards wholeness.
And I think the call for me is, I think, reach out, and create time. Because I think whatever we are going through often encourages us to continue to self-isolate.
Right.
To continue to, be in our own mind, with the hope
Our
that
cave.
our own cave, exactly, trying to work it out.
Yeah.
And I think there are those of us right now as we speak that need to reach out to somebody and to create time to be with somebody.
Yeah.
And I think there are those of us who currently have guys in mind who they know,
Right.
that actually, they just need a hand. They just need a presence. They need, a shoulder. And I think, instead of being busy on our phones,
Right.
instead of being busy with all kinds of things where we are busy, but, we are not really, what really changes us is relationships.
Absolutely.
And spending time with people. And so I think, think about who you want to reach out to and who you ought to reach out to and make that connection. And I believe that you'll be better for it. And I think the key thing, is continuing in those spaces so that, there is follow through to the initial inspiration, to the
Fantastic.
initial, the oxygen that comes in when we are around people that are positive.
Beautiful. And I think also don't believe what you see.
Mm.
And the reason I say it is often we put on a brave front. They say that the biggest lie that men tell is, I'm fine. And, as you said earlier, you're going through stuff. And what we do is we retreat into our cave.
Yeah.
But the image we put across is one of I'm together, I'm fine. But meanwhile, you're dying inside.
Correct.
And I think I learned this lesson profoundly and powerfully through a friend who committed suicide. And I realized looking back, I didn't see. I didn't see what he was going through. He didn't share with me. But if I'd been more attentive and more in tune, I could have seen some of the signs and not believed the lie. The lie is I'm okay, but pushing in deeper. And as men, we need to do that. We don't do that.
I want to just emphasize something there, because just recently I was watching something on Netflix, and it's really the words that came out of that was, those of us who seem the happiest on social media, especially in this generation, actually are those of us who, there are serious issues behind there. And so let's not believe what we see, in our phones, in our, and even the face value, but actually begin to talk.
100%. It's powerful.
Talk to people.
Talking heals. And, women are so good at that. And we're so bad at that. There's a sense of pride. There's a sense of, I need to have it together. I can't be weak. I can't be vulnerable.
Yes.
But vulnerability is strength.
Correct.
And it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. Sihle, this is beautiful. I mean, we can only be the men that God made us to be if we're whole, if we're okay. And we can only be okay if we're honest with ourselves and honest with each other as brothers and stand with each other to bring healing. Let's jump back to the fatherhood thing, because fathers are so important and they're so absent. And a lot of fathers are absent because of the very issues we've been talking about. They don't feel adequate. They don't feel enough. They're drowning themselves in all kinds of addictions and things to ease the pain. But the rallying call to men is to pitch up, man. Pitch up. Be the dad. And in South Africa, we need to be the father to more than just our own children. We need to be the dad, the father figure, the role model. Young boys look to older men to model to them what it means to be a man. Young girls look to older men to model to them what is a good man and what they can expect. If you as a father treat the mother of your daughter badly, what message are you giving to your daughter? You're giving her the message that women are worthless, that women are less than, that women deserve to be abused. If you as a father treat women with equality and respect and love and nurture, you are giving your daughter the message, you are valuable, you count, your life matters, and don't accept any behavior from a man that's less than loving, caring, nurturing. And so it's so crucial for us as men to be the role model, to be the father, to be the nurturer, the protector.
Yes, I think we, by virtue of the way that we are made, and God has made us, we set that tone. And the question is, what kind of tone are we setting?
It's a great question.
And I think for each of us, we need to ask ourselves in the different spheres, because that's what will determine, the value of things. If we are those people who create time to spend with that young person, then they feel like they're worth it.
Absolutely.
Then they feel like, they are, worthy of love, and worthy of respect and worthy of these things. For that young woman, we are, that's what we are communicating. And so, yes, I think there's a contradiction that exists. We are made beautiful and with so much potential and so many things, and yet, we are fallen, and so we are full of mistakes. We get things wrong. Potential for bad. And so I think that is the tension that will always be exist. And I think it's so important that when we do, find ourselves being sucked into this one, that we are surrounded by the kinds of relationships that will remind us of who we are and the kinds of environments. Because when we do that, that's when we are able to live this side more fully. That's when we are able to shine the light that is in us.
And what you're saying is we can't do it alone. We need each other. We need the village. When it comes to having children, just to change tack a little bit, we see in South Africa some quite alarming motivations for having children. I'm going to have a child to get the Social Security grant. I'm going to have a child to keep the relationship together. I'm going to have a child just because I'm careless and I didn't, I had casual sex without protection. We need to really, really focus on teaching people that having a child is probably the biggest thing you ever do. You're bringing another life into this world. And do you have the resources? Do you have the circumstances, the wholeness, the intention, the emotional ability to give that child what they deserve to become a healthy adult? Because if you don't, you should never, ever have a child.
Correct.
Never have a child for the wrong reasons. You're bringing a beautiful life into this world to be abused, to be neglected, to be abandoned, to live a life of destitution. And that's a terrible thing to do, isn't it, Sihle? I mean, you see the result of that.
I do. I think one of the things that are interesting is the whole adoption process. The whole adoption process opens your eyes actually to what it takes to be a parent.
Right.
And so often when somebody wants to adopt, there's a whole array of criteria. For example, they need to be healthy. Their relationships need to be healthy around them, whether it's a marriage or it's and they need to be in a place where they're able to support this child. They need to have a safety net around them should something happen, to them. And they need to have really thought about the decision. Because it can't just be about themselves and what they want. It has to be, about that life that is going to come into the world because, it is so vulnerable.
Yes.
And so I think the adoption process is so powerful because, and that's why the process is over even a year often. And then it looks at, all of those things. And so I do think it's, in a country like ours where, poverty is such a challenge and a reason for why people have, children before it's time. And often they find themselves, they need to buy groceries and then they engage in unprotected sex, for example. And then in order to get those groceries, they need, to be in a relationship in order to keep that relationship. They do those kinds of things. And so children are born, where people who with such little support and with such little care that they often need to be abandoned. In our country, 10,000 babies are abandoned each year.
Wow, that's a tragedy.
10,000 babies,
tragedy,
which is really, very sad. And often, sex, the reason why that has happened is because of poverty. It is often because of gender-based violence. Some of it is forced,
rape.
Rape, a lot of incest, within families happens. A lot of it, even bullying, is part of the picture. And sometimes people not even knowing, just understanding how sexual reproductive health works.
Right.
And so you find that so many people so many babies get abandoned. I don't know if we often have an understanding of how many children die because of abandonment.
Sure.
So out of those 10,000 children, about 3,000 children live.
7,000 die.
7,000 children die
That's
each
a
year
frightening statistic.
in South Africa.
Frightening statistic.
Yeah.
Wow.
And which is just a massive tragedy for any society. The measure of a society is how we treat the vulnerable, how we treat our children.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that they, these are saved and they go to places like Hotel Hope and many other places. They are found on the side of the road. They are found in like the Jaske River. Sometimes they are found in hospitals, where the mom has left without actually being discharged. And I think what we don't realize is that each time that happens, the future of that child is diminished.
Right.
Because it's unlikely that they will have the attachment because they've been rejected.
Yeah.
They're unlikely that they will have the attachment to be able to learn. They will never reach their potential in terms of their physical ability, their thinking ability. And that means that they will probably never be able to finish school because of something that happened that somebody else caused and affected how they were brought up. And they'll never be able to finish school. They'll never be able to earn to their potential.
Yeah.
Normally, what that means is that they will be joining the long queue of the unemployed,
Right.
and often unemployable. And because they will they don't have the mental capacity, to be able to reach their potential. Yeah. And so I think the reason why we have children, it is something that we really need to look at, I think, as a society. And sex is a very powerful thing that has real consequences.
Yeah. Not just for yourself, for
not
other
just
lives.
for yourself, for other lives, and not just for other lives, but for 18 years of the next life, and beyond that.
Yeah.
And so we are grateful for places and where children are looked after. But when that abandonment has happened, when those things have happened, really, it's we are putting a bandage, over a really deep wound.
I'm with you.
That we will not be, that will really never be made up for.
Wow. Sobering stuff, eh? Sobering. I mean, before having a child, one needs to really consider what I'm doing. Why am I doing it?
Yeah.
Can I raise this child? Can I do full justice to this child?
Correct.
It's a sacred responsibility.
It is.
Sihle,
And it's not something that all of us, none of us can say, I can do this, and it's actually, I want to, be all that I can be. I want to be there. I want to be part of the journey.
Yeah.
And I think when that happens, the relationship is intact, and therefore the potential of this child, keeps growing and growing.
Fantastic.
And growing.
And so in essence, before having a child, we should really ask ourselves the very same questions that an adoption agency would ask you. That's what we should do. That should be the checklist as to whether we can have a child. And very few people do that, sadly.
Correct.
Yeah. Sihle, I mean, it's wonderful chatting to you. I can honestly say you're a dangerous man. Dangerous to dysfunction, dangerous to orphans, dangerous to fatherlessness, and power to you, brother, man. Keep doing what you're doing, and let's keep conversing. Any final words you'd have to those listening?
Yes, I think I've been majoring on this issue of who do you need to speak to begin the process of addressing the things that are really bothering you and the things that you need. I believe that if we begin that process today, and this weekend, the coming week, we will be full of hope, we'll be full of direction, and we will be getting back on the way to making a difference, getting back on the way of being a positive influence on the life of others.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Just in closing, I want to say, man, speaking to the men now, your life really, really matters. You're valuable. You're designed to make a significant difference. And our encouragement to you today is pitch up. Pitch up. Be the best version of yourself you can possibly be. Look in the mirror. Ask yourself, sit on the edge of your bed and ask yourself, are there things that I'm doing that are not positive, that are destructive, that are not good for myself or those around me? And deal with it. Speak to somebody. Look in the mirror, speak to somebody. Find people who are inspiring. People like Sihle, who can be role models, fathers, who can talk about a positive life, and be that man, because your life really matters and you need to pitch up. So pitch up, because we need you to pitch up. Sihle, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you very much, Craig.
We'll chat soon.
It's a joy to be here.